say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu. And as normal, even when I go to teach my physics and electronics material, most of the time I will recite to myself what Musa alayhi salam have said, رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. I say that with a tongue cheek because most of the time the concepts I talk about in physics are complicated and I need to make it easy. I also use English, which is not my mother tongue. Today, unfortunately, I will also be talking about something which I'm the least knowledgeable amongst you in here, and addressing your group in here. I'm delighted, and as Dr. Shayal, whom I've met many years ago, and he reckons that he was the oldest in the room. I think I have got news for him. But anyway, I'll leave that for another occasion. When Dr. Shayal have asked me to come and address this meeting, and particularly he mentioned the word, the Arab Spring, that immediately struck a chord with me, and I said, yes, with no reservations. I'll come and talk about it. So it's a big topic, and I'll come to it in a second or two. But actually, it's unfortunate today that we have chosen this day particularly, but it could also be fortunate. As we know, there is a huge demonstration in Downing Street at this moment in time by our brothers and sisters, whether Arabs, Muslims, or none. And I work with great many of non-Muslims who feel the shame of what is happening to the Palestinian people, and this country in particular, and it is complexity in the issue. I know some people have their views about the guy who started it all, James Balfour, who I reckon needs to be looked at with another why investigation. That guy is not a simple guy, and I would say that he hated both Jews and Arabs with his declaration. So I would call him a racist, in my opinion. But anyway, that is my opinion. But I think it needs looking at very carefully. Why is very important, and I think today's, in recent years, is Yitzhak Rabin, who is a Zionist to the core. His father was a Zionist. He comes from a very Zionist family. Yet, that man has given a speech a month before he was killed on the orders of two people. I happen to believe Netanyahu, one of them, and the other guy who stayed in a coma for a number of years. That speech, he has done something very important, and it is something related to what we are talking about today. Why? When he addressed his fellow MPs in the Knesset by saying, when we came here, we found Banu Am, the Palestinians. In that word, he has broken a fundamental lie that the state of Israel was built upon. A land without people, for people without land. He just destroyed it in one word by saying, when we came here, it was the Palestinians. In saying that, he also have destroyed another lie, one which gets me very angry sometimes, and as an old man, Dr. Shayal, forgive me for saying that, I also get angry. When people call me the Arabs, and I'm not a Semite, and the Semitism is only associated with the Jewish people, and that needs clarification. I always make that very clear to people by saying, actually, when they claim that they are the Semite people, then they are denying the Palestinian the right of being in that place. And as that idiot yesterday who was giving the talk in the embassy said, if the Palestinians have a problem, they should go and talk to God. So that needs, again, clarification. And we need to tell people that the Palestinians have every right to be in that piece of land. But it is shame on us today as a humanity to see 2 million people for 11 years under economic blockade. That needs to be told to the world. So back to the Arab Spring, because that is equally important and equally needing addressing in there. It's a phenomenon that not just the Arabs have waited for. Non-Arabs who love this part of the world. And if you remember in 2003, over 100 ambassadors wrote to the two war criminals, in my opinion, who are still at large, pleading with them not to invade Iraq. And they were all called, over 100 international ambassadors from the States and from the UK in particular. They were referred to as Arab lovers. So you are discredited. Like any Jewish person who says, not in my name, he's a self-hating Jew. These are very important. So the Arab Spring is an important issue that I have my heart into it, like the old and the young have also hoped that it will yield something. I remember when the revolution took place in the Eastern Bloc, and I was sitting with a group of young Arabs at the time. They are getting old, but still younger than me. And I said, well, when will it be that the Arabs will have the right to do what the Eastern Europeans have done? And I was tasked by the European Union to help many of my fellow academics in the Eastern Bloc to raise their levels of competence in their research into the Western status. And I spent 3-5 years of lovely years talking with these people and visiting them regularly, and also inviting them to my laboratories. So I hope that part of time, that the Arab Spring, there is a lot to be written about it. There is a lot of research to be done around it. I still believe that people telling me that it was all a setup by the Western bloc, so to speak, I find that an insult to the young Tunisian who has set himself on fire. He was part of that nonsense that they are talking about. But the point is, they have had many WAI organizations telling the leaders in the West what they should do if the Arabs rise and ask for their rights. So they were much quicker than us. We had the enthusiasm, men and women, Muslims and non-Muslims, all getting in the streets, and Tahrir Street was a phenomenon. People are still talking about it until today. But where has it gone? How could we allow something like that to fizzle away? It's very important, and that needs researching. I'll stop in here on that, but I will just say a few words about, because I've read the aims and the who is this WAI organization. And I would like to say 1 or 2 words in here, and particularly the variety of topics and the tasks that you have set yourself up for. Huge. And in the who are we, I look at the first word there, concerned with science, arts, literature, and the disciplines related to nurturing individual and collective awareness. We analyze and predict future trends in scientific, political, economic. So the word science came twice in 2 sentences, and I don't think, in my opinion, although I'm a scientist and I do things which are so-called the cutting edge of science, the Arab region does not require people like me at this moment in time. We need social scientists. And may I remind you that Europe and the Renaissance was built because they had some Muslim philosopher that unfortunately was not well respected at his time, and we've got to know him from his students, Jewish students, who wrote in Hebrew, and we have unearthed his books in Hebrew before we started finding them in Arabic by the name Ibn Rushd or Averroes. Europe have that greatness that they have seen over the last few hundred years because of Ibn Rushd, who was not a scientist. And I think we need to help our youngsters to go into these areas of research rather than doing the physics and chemistry and the rest of it. There are some of us should do also physics and chemistry and engineering, but not to be every young Arab boy or a girl. They would like to be either doctors or engineers and scientists. And the region does not require that, by the way. So I'll in here, again, the time I know is, I don't want to take too much of your time, but I think the tasks that you have given yourself are huge, and I would advise the foundation to hire someone as a consultant to help reshape these papers. These are too huge. And you may not be able to achieve anything if you start like that, because you will see the disappointment very quickly. Most successful organizations, and I've been meeting with companies all over the world, from Japan to America, when they have a specific task and focused one, they achieve. If you think that you are going to solve everything, you will solve nothing. And jack of all trade always becomes a master of none. So I do that. I will end up by saying that there also need to be a bit of, I'm also disappointed that there are no females in the room today. More than 50% of our populations are females. And if we don't encourage them,
we invited everyone.
We need to encourage them. We need to do something more than that. They cannot be the silent group, and that is shame on us that we have not succeeded. I will always blame myself before I blame the others. My message has not been clear enough, enthusiastic enough to tell them, come and join with me. And if you look at the history, it was made by the two. So, again, I would like to ask that you look at the two regions which are perhaps related to us in the struggle that they have gone through. South America and South Africa. Some of my role models, and I'm proud to say that they are some of my role models. Nelson Mandela, Desmond Tutu, who is still alive, and I hope he will live for longer and longer, and Martin Luther King. And I will just end by reminding you with Martin Luther King, and I'm not going to say the famous speech, I have a dream, because actually it brings tears to my eyes. I'm over 70. And whenever I hear him, I cry. Because I have a dream, like all of you have a dream. And we may not, me and Dr. Shayal, Allahu A'lam, but we may not see our dream being fulfilled. But I hope that you will see that dream being fulfilled for us, for our future generations, for the whole world. The region has a lot of potential, a lot of people who can do good. We need to help them realize that dream. The final word is temptation. I know that we have the pain in our hearts and in our minds of what our region is going through. But as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has guided us, that we have to be just. ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم على ألا تعدلوا اعدلوا هو أقرب للتقوى. Don't let the bitterness, temptation of bitterness dissuade you from the road that we ought to be following. And I will finally say, إن تكونوا تألمون فإنهم يألمون كما تألمون وترجون من الله ما لا يرجون. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much.